Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. I was not expecting the timeline to be quite as on fire as it was when I woke up this morning. After all the Boston sound EQ drama of yesterday, Gunless is coming at Beans. Beans tries to get him back with the right hook. Gunless goes to put him down with a haymaker. The owner of Boston Breach comes back into the mix as well. It's all going on. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks also to PrizePicks for supporting today's content. If you guys want to get involved in daily fantasy sports, now's the time to do it because so much is going on in sports right now. There's, NBA, the CSGO majors coming up. Of course, we've got some big Call of Duty action today. Got to look at this FaZe versus OpTic series, right? Dashy, I don't know. Dashy usually has a great time against FaZe, I've got to say. We'll talk about these series more in the coming minutes, so I'll take him on the over. The Miami Grand Prix is also tonight as well. I'll have a quick look at what we've got over here. I don't feel maybe Esteban Ocon can get a point or two. That Alpine's been looking reasonably competitive. And if I lived in the US, I'd be able to place his entry. If you guys want to get involved, feel free to use the link in the description box below. And PrizePicks will match any deposit up to $100. Play responsibly, as always, all that good stuff. And let's dive straight into the action. So this was a remarkable series, Toronto versus Thieves last night. It's funny, right, because Kenny, when he plays OpTic, is just next level. And even though it's now end of season Kenny, he went back to OGLA Quavo Ken yesterday because he was getting absolutely cooked. 42 deaths on game one for the W, by the way. Like, it was an absolutely ridiculous game one hardpoint. 250, 244, I believe. Thieves come out with the dub. But yeah, Kenny, 18 in 42 he went. That's the most deaths so far this season. They still won the map though. And on the other side, Scrappy broke the record for kills, dropping 43. This honestly was such a ridiculous series from Scrappy. I said even, was it yesterday or the day before, I was like, I'm surprised he wasn't voted on the MVP ladder. I put him on mine. I was like, he's been disgusting and he's won an event and an MVP. He's got to be in the conversation. And he comes out first series against the reigning champions in LA Thieves and delivers a performance like this. And it's not just a game one stopping. Clay's been doing that the last couple of days, but then hasn't always kept that up through the course of the series. Scrappy did it every single map. Kenny talking here that he was in the death simulator there in the hardpoint, and I imagine it felt like it. Scrappy also had a nice little 1v3 moment here in the control. That put them up 2-1 at this point. Obviously, he was absolutely loving it. And then the final hardpoint was a demolition job as well. Scrappy goes like 37 in 23 or something. Just completely blows them off the face of the earth. So yeah, incredible from Toronto. Also, I know that Scrappy stole the headlines, but I mean, Hicksy had a great showing as well. He's usually nailed on for a 0.8 whether they win or lose. But in this series, it was a clean 1.15 for Hicksy. Definitely looking a bit more comfortable. And their search and destroy, they won that as well. And that was always the key, I thought, for Toronto. Last stage, their search was bad. This stage, if they can get it to a decent level as they were at before, they will be a threat. I expect both of these teams, especially going into Toronto's home major. They're kicking up at the right time, Toronto. They had a downstage in Major 4, but if there's one stage you want that to happen, that's not a bad place to have it going into your home Major 5. So, yeah, lots to take away from this one because I don't think Thieves were bad. But, I mean, Scrappy just was absolutely insane. 119 kills over 4 maps of play. That is the record, well, it ties the record for kills in a series at 119 with Pred. But this was only in 4 maps. Pred's was in 5. So if it had gone 5, Scrappy would have blown the record out of the water. Insane performance, really, and well, I'm looking forward to how that continues because we know that these two, well, Drazah and Scrappy are pretty entertaining characters, and well, if we get a rematch like this on LAN, it's going to be very interesting indeed. Let's dive into the drama then. So if you guys missed it last night, Boston versus Minnesota Rokkr absolutely kicked off at the Rokkr home series because Boston refused to turn off the loudness equalization setting, and we talked about all the drama because of that last night. However, it then kicked off, it continued to kick off as a result. I've got to say, some of the explanations from the Boston camp on this were quite remarkable because Coach B-Sport Josh said they want to play in this match as they would do if it was a normal online game to get better practice for their upcoming league matches. But then people like Slasher are like, well, surely you want to get better practice for actually when you play at the major where it is disabled by, it's guaranteed to be disabled. So Dens, the general manager, says, and I like Dens, but we are coming into a home crowd buff, so I guess he felt like the team needs to, come up with their own reasoning why they're going to have some advantage in the series, and we knew we could win the mental battle before the game begun. This is quite the statement, right, to basically say that they decided to do this so they could get in their heads of the opposition, which, look, it worked, right? I mean, they clearly got in Minnesota's head, and they won the series. So, congratulations, you got your 10 CDL points, and, you're looking at a decent spot to get a decent seed for the major, and then, of course, qualify for the World Championship. And at what cost, right? The entire community now is like, we hate Boston type type thing. I'm sure they're going to get booed at like every event they go to from now on. So was it really worth it is what I'm saying here. Like, what sort of team do they think they are when they're winning the mental battle in this kind of home series online qualifier game? I don't really understand it. I know that Ben JoeDeceives called the whole situation effectively cowardice, and I can understand why. Now, I will say that Looney's tweet, while I agree with it, many have said, look, are Minnesota the best team to talk just because of when they played OpTic a while ago, the SAE drama, where you could argue that Minnesota Rokkr did a very similar thing here in that OpTic case to what Boston have done against them. So maybe what goes around comes around to some degree. But Scrumps does confirm here in the replies that in these matches they played against Minnesota Rokkr in the home series, no other team was using the sound EQ. It was only Boston that decided to turn it on. So, you know, you can understand the community backlash. Bance even replies and shows that Clayster, while he was actually supporting Boston on this one, and maybe he's just supporting Boston because he wanted them to win to try and, you know, stop Rokkr getting to champs. But Bance tweets out this from a while ago where Clay was obviously trying to get rid of loudness equalization, and then Clay says, look, I tried to get it gone, but it didn't work, so you've just got to use it. Dog eat dog world. Now, unfortunately, I just finished recording last night's video just before this tweet hit the timeline from Afro. I didn't realize there was going to be a further back and forth here. So Awakening says, GG's, bro. Not sure if no sound EQ would have changed the results, though. So, I mean, pretty spicy stuff from Awakening, but even his general manager Dens admitted that part of the reason why they did this was to get into their opponent's head. So they obviously felt like there was some advantage to be gained for doing so, but that's another question. But Afro comes back with this, and you've got to love the UK insults, right? You don't see them too often, but, you know, when they come out, it's always a good time. Not about the result, you plum. It's about the fact that you refuse to take off the sound EQ when every other team we played took it off. Freaky says. So, you know, I can't blame Afro for this one. I think it's justifiable, and obviously people were coming out with stuff like this, which I did manage to get on yesterday's thumbnail of Awakening in a plum suit, or at least inhabiting a plum. So pretty unbelievable stuff, to be honest. Now, this is not where the drama of the evening ended, because Gunless, multiple-time Call of Duty event winner and champion and MVP from a few years ago. The last time we saw him was on the Los Angeles Guerrillas team last year. He got unfortunately unwell, had to step out of that team. Spart came in, they won the major, then they struggled, brought Gunless back in, didn't work, dropped him again, and since then he's been around the Challengers pit, not really doing anything particularly impressive, and, you know, Gunless was such a phenomenal player back in the day, Infinite Warfare when he came on the scene, World War II as well. The last couple of years hasn't really quite been there to the same degree, and it's difficult to say because in Challengers he hasn't been impressive, but you know, you could argue the same thing for Methods, right? When he went down to Challengers, TJ Halley, like, it's just because you don't perform in Challengers at a high level doesn't mean that when you come back to the Pro League, you can't still be a very valuable player. So I'm kind of torn on what I think about Gunless in terms of his future potential in the CDL, but Gunless tweeted this last night. Did Beans just scream from shooting two people that weren't even looking at him? Now, I saw this tweet and I thought, all right, well, I was going to mention it last night, but then all the thing kicked off with Afro and Awakening, so I thought, you know what, I'll just leave this tweet out of the storyline. But it does have to be mentioned because Gunless says this, which is kind of coming at Beans to a certain extent. Now, maybe Gunless is just commenting on the game and effectively talking about bad comms from Beans' side, but then Beans comes back and says, peculiar tweet. Now, Gunless goes, not my fault you got caught in 4K screaming like you're cooking, shooting two people in the back, scream when you're missing someone, or spawn call out if you want to scream, but hey, I must be thinking too logical on this. I was cooking. If my teammates want to say that, cool. Until then, it's unnecessary riding from you, won't lie. Brother, you placed 12th last event. Don't see anything wrong with your comms? Wow, the only difference between people that want it and need it is insane, but I keep doing you though. We're talking about current placements while you're still stuck in challenges. Now that is wild. So let's just address this real quick. Now, first of all, it's kind of Gunless comes at Beans first, really, and Beans, I think, is entitled to respond. And I think I would be pretty much 50-50 on this in a normal circumstance, and I feel like the community might be as well. But this is why the whole Boston thing affects their reputation. Like, Gunless is cooking him in terms of the ratios on these tweets, right? And I don't think that would necessarily be the case if it wasn't for what just unfolded with Boston and the Sound EQ. They've tarnished their reputation by doing this, and therefore, in any 50-50 circumstance where where one player might be in the right, might be in the wrong, the people are going to side against Boston now. That's how it's going to be. And that's certainly how the community seems to feel on this. So, and then Gunless comes back as championships in the MVP check. You don't have any, right? That is wild. And B just talking about it, you know, if you weren't living in the past, maybe you'd be here too. So, I mean, incredibly juicy stuff, it's got to be said. And look, both are in the right to some degree. Gunless probably is pretty salty that he's not in the league. That's at least how I read this, right? I'm sure Gunless wants to be in the Pro League. I'm sure he sees Beans commenting maybe somewhat poorly in his opinion and sees this guy's in the league, why aren't I in the league? And you can understand the frustration from Gunless on that one, given what he has achieved, the championships he's won, the MVPs. But, you know, still, I think Beans is entitled to say what he said as well. So it's definitely spicy stuff. And even Gunless quote tweets this and says, yo, at Methods, like, tell your replacement to pipe down and remind him who I am. So definitely the egos are on full display to see here. And even Gunless, so basically Oxygen Murph, who is the owner of the Boston Breach, or at least one of the owners, comes back and says, my guy isn't even in the league. Give him no mind, that Beans. I was rocking him down here in the pit last year, and I can't wait to rock him again next year when I'm back in the league. And that's on phone now. Now, I think what he's trying to say is, and first of all, Beans replies to be like, oh wow, I'm so scared type thing. So, I mean, man, it's all going off, I can't lie. And I think what he was trying to say is this, which apparently is like a, if you guys are from Chicago and know about this lingo, let me know in the comment section below, but on phone M. And I'm not really too familiar with this. I'm guessing it means so like on my boys or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, so I guess that's what Gunless is trying to get at here, because he did play for Chicago once, right? He played for the Chicago Huntsmen. So apparently maybe that's what he's getting at here, but I thought it was pretty funny. And this was the tweet, right? So Jacob L tweets this out, and then Murph said, my guy isn't even in the league. And, you know, Brian Sass was talking about disrespecting one of the greatest COD players of the last decade. So, you know, it's interesting, right? Because, yes, Gunless was getting disrespected in parts, but at the same time, Gunless is also disrespecting Beans, and I'm kind of 50-50 on it, but with the sound EQ reputation tax, it's definitely pushing the community into Gunless's perspective, and you can understand why. And, look, fundamentally, what has Beans achieved in his career so far compared to what Gunless has achieved? Is Gunless probably salty is not in the league? Probably yes, that's my take on it, but still, regardless, I mean, it's just absolutely remarkable drama that we get here. I was not expecting it to cook off to quite this extent, but that's Call of Duty, baby, and long may it continue, to be perfectly honest. So these are, of course, some of Gunless's performances over his career, and as Bean says, to kind of close things out, disregarding all the controversy, Rokkr put on an amazing event. Hope more orgs do this in the future with some tweaks to it, hoping to, you know, hit some form, and he basically said, I'm going to let the sound EQ do the talking from now on. So yeah, it's going to be spicy stuff, can't lie about it. Before we talk about today's games, wanted to quickly mention that when we see matches such as this, and there's one example today, Florida versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. Who cares? I don't know. But the funny thing is about these games that actually they can be more entertaining, because the quality of Call of Duty is so bad that it's actually quite entertaining to watch at times. So we'll see if any of the GAs get broken as well. If people start pulling out like cast-off 74Us, get the smokes out, get all the snipers out, put the attachments on, I don't know. It would be entertaining because these guys aren't making champs anyway. But they're not playing today, but there is a game today, Mutineers versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. That's first up here. It's got to be a game 5. I'll take a Mutineers dub here. And then FaZe OpTic, that's your monster matchup of the day, or whatever they call it here. And look, OpTic always get FaZe's number lately. There's got to be a time where it turns around. FaZe looked good in their first series they played the other day, but it wasn't against particularly impressive opposition in the Los Angeles Guerrillas. And OpTic always turn up against FaZe, so I'll take OpTic in a 3-1 victory. I think that's probably fair enough, but it could always go the other way. Obviously, FaZe always carry that threat of winning both Search and Destroys. And then Subliners versus Thieves. This is very interesting now, because both of these teams are 0-1. A 0-2 start for either of these teams puts them in a bit of a predicament, but I'll take Thieves in 4, I think. Maybe Thieves in 5, actually. I think Subliners will play a bit better, but yeah, their Game 5 Search and Destroys in New York have not particularly impressed me, but very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.